Well, and large companies too, also, to kind of argue against myself here, they also may have built core competency teams that they don't realize they have and could be utilizing to pull some of that stuff out of the cloud in-house. They may already have some of those core competencies. So you should examine that too. Not just how can I make what we're doing more efficient, but do I have some core competencies already built into my teams where I could take on part of this cloud management in-house? I don't have to build that core competency. It just happened to be hired already, so let's utilize it. Right? I think the chances, though, of you accidentally hiring in a core competency that you weren't planning on are probably kind of small. Yes, employees are smart and they have a lot of talents and stuff, and they can develop things, and through different experiences, they'll have experience with things that you don't know that they have experience with necessarily. But a whole core competency team to move something like that is not usually an accidental luck in, but it's something you should examine.
Yeah.
Because even if I can just pull the database off and do database management here, right, or something like that, that's still a big chunk of expenditure.
Yeah. So, I think the main reason that the DHH gave was the costs. And that is something I hear from other clients that I work with is watching those costs, watching those costs, watching those costs.
Well,
So I
especially
think it
now
is,
with inflation the way it is, costs
yeah.
are important.
So I think that's definitely consideration as why people want to examine it. But if you choose to do this, then it basically means you now need to, if you ch- if AWS is extracting too much, then you need to find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
That competency, either in people you have on your staff or in third-party providers that can do it at less expensively, provide you that same thing, and maybe you don't use some of their services.
Right. And there's you kind of brought up a point where there's another reason to want to leave the cloud, and that's from a reason of principles. If you think that your cloud provider is taking advantage of you or overcharging or something, and you say, I'm just not going to play this game anymore. But you have to be willing to take on a lot to be able to do that. But principles is another consideration. How you want to run your company, how you want to interact with other service companies, So, it's something to consider. But honestly, if you're a business, your primary consideration is the bottom line on your balance sheet. So that's really where you want to be looking. Assuming you want to stay in business, I guess. But yeah, I just don't see this being an overwhelming thing for most businesses because while yes, it's expensive, I think in most cases it's less expensive than what it would cost to not be there.
Again, the 30% profit margin. The money's sitting there.
Well, yeah, but I'm not just going to get 30% if I try to bring this in house because my costs are going to go up a lot.
Depends on your level of scale.
Well, yes, there's a whole lot of depends in all of this discussion, but and for some companies, it may be a good move. I'm just saying I don't see that in a lot of companies' cases. That not that just from a cost perspective, but from the opportunity cost perspective, from the headaches, from the
I think that's more the reason people won't want to face it, won't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want the hassle.
Yeah. If it was purely a cost consideration, a monthly expenditure consideration, I think there's a lot of companies that would, flip to black on that, but I, I don't know. I don't, it doesn't seem to me, from what I've seen, to be worth the switch at this point, unless you're just starting the company, you know. But if you're
Well, some
already
people,
ingrained in all this,
well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not advocating, hey, everybody should move off the cloud type thing,
oh sure,
but it's kind of like if these cloud companies can extract that much profit, then at some point something may break and it may look appealing to go off on your own and leave the cloud. But at least at this stage, again, for small companies, something smaller than what Basecamp Pay is, I don't think it's going to make a lot of sense.
right.
I
Although if
think,
they're making 30% profit, then maybe what makes sense is me starting my own cloud hosting company. If that's where all the money is,
there you go, Chris's data center.
that's right. Uh, it's in a little, plankwood shack on the beach with my two little servers.
Yes, you'll get plenty of customers being right on the coast of Florida.
Yeah. Hey, don't
Nice.
worry. Don't worry. I put the servers up on wood pallets so the tide won't get to them. It's fine. I promise.
I was looking for insurance coverage um for something, and every one of the insurance carriers was asking me, "How close are you to the coast?" I was like,
uh,
the answer is yes.
I'm in Florida. How far away can you possibly be from the coast?
So, yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, but this I found interesting because it got me thinking and looking at, because I come from a systems administration background, so I don't mind dealing with this stuff. But, when I was looking at it, running the numbers, I was like, yeah, I gotta like, it would have to, like I said, probably 100x my level of traffic before it would make sense for me to leave what I'm doing now.
yeah.
And then I also wanted to make note of what I do to minimize costs is to try to not use so many of their dedicated services, but just use these base servers they provide and use configuration and tools to do that.
So kind of rent
So,
rent the metal rather than the service.
yeah. I mean, they're still virtual, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not like
Well,
I'm
yeah.
paying for their database service. I'm
Hmm.
just buying their I'm renting one of their servers and putting my own stuff on it
Right.
type thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing to look at. I suspect though that there aren't going to be a lot of large businesses looking at this anytime soon because having just come out of COVID and all that stuff, there's a lot bigger fish to fry, I think, at the moment. Um, I know internally there's a lot of attention being paid to many things other than what does our cloud hosting cost us. So I don't know. I mean, it's like you said, it's a good thought experiment, and it's something to think about and pay attention to. I mean, there's probably a lot of efficiencies that can be had if you just look at it a little bit. But um, yeah, it's a tough thing to do.
And we'll see what happens in the next couple of years, because
Yeah.
37 Signals said, "Hey, let's change our name to Basecamp, the company name."
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years later, like, "Yeah, we're going back to 37 Signals."
Right.
So,
Yes.
they're not one for reversing viewpoints and perspectives. So, this is their perspective today,
Right.
and then we'll see a couple of years. They'll do
Well,
another post. We're going back to the cloud.
yeah. So we'll let them guinea pig it and see how they do. Um,
But I am super interested in seeing what tools they're going to be using. Because I take some responsibility for some of my setup of the servers that run in AWS.
uh huh.
I'm looking at what kind of tool sets they're using. Like, for example, I've had it on my to-do list to look into Kubernetes forever
Yep.
because I'm thinking, well, this is kind of the way everybody's doing it now, and everybody's moving to Kubernetes and pods and yada yada yada. But then I see his writing and complaining about how complex Kubernetes is to set up and use or whatnot. And as an alternative, they're offering, I guess you pronounce it MRSK, MRSK.
Yeah.
So this is basically, they originally, I think, came up with Capistrano.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's the same concept as Capistrano, but using Docker containers. So basically, you build your
Makes
Docker
sense.
container, and like Capistrano, it basically deploys your application up to a server. It doesn't do the provisioning of the server, but if you're using Docker containers, the provisioning doesn't have to be as arduous. It's just basically a computer that can run a container. So basically, once you deploy your container, all you have to do is just copy the container up and swap it out for the next container to do upgrades.
Hmm.
So basically, when you're going to do a deploy, but you do a commit to your project. Well, you run off a process to rebuild a container.
Mm-hmm.
And then the deploy process is taking that container, putting it on a server, and swapping it with the running container. And then that's how you do your deploys.
See, that makes sense. I always liked Capistrano. I liked that workflow. Because it
Yeah,
was simple.
so that's what I'm saying. I'm hearing his complaints about the Kubernetes and its
Mm-hmm.
complexity, and hearing MRSK and what they're working on. I'm like, okay. I hate to say this because probably I don't know how many other people, but I still use Capistrano for my deployment.
I was using it
So
until not too long ago.
I'm super interested in looking at what he's doing with MRSK because maybe I want to start using that.
Yeah,
So.
the only reason I stopped using Capistrano is because I got this job where they're using Kates and they have all their deploy scripts, and I just run that, and I'm like, I'm not gonna fight.
Yeah.
I ain't swimming upstream here. It's not worth it. But yeah, I used Capistrano for a long time. Loved it. Had complete control over how my deploys were going. It was simple to understand. It's a straight flow. There's not a lot of moving around, and it was just easy. So,
and MRSK should be even simpler because once you have your container built or your process for building your container, you just do a commit, put it in a container, put the container on the server, and swap it with the existing running container, and you're live on the next version.
yeah.
So,
Welcome to the Capistrano show.
chat.
So you're on that too, huh? Good on you, Seb. I mean, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know why so many people were down on Capistrano, but apparently I don't know. I guess it just wasn't the
newer stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't the new hotness anymore. So, but I'm not the new hotness. I'm still okay, I think.
I'm neither new nor hot, so there you go. If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here, or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.